The Lake Chad Basin and the deeply complex, historically volatile Sambisa Forest axis are currently witnessing a massive tectonic shift in the ongoing national war against terrorism this March 2026, driven entirely by the highly explosive and incredibly relieving reports that the Nigerian army has decisively neutralized one of the most elusive, strategic, and ruthless figures in the Islamic State West Africa province. The name Bako Gorgore has historically sent absolute shivers down the spines of vulnerable residents across Borno State and the wider northeastern region for several years. And the breaking news of his violent, definitive end at the hands of our exceptionally gallant frontline troops is currently dominating high-level security briefings, intelligence corridors in Abuja, and intense social media discussions across the entire nation. To fully grasp the sheer magnitude and the strategic importance of this monumental military victory, we must take a comprehensive historical look at exactly who Bako Gorgore was, the massive reign of terror he orchestrated under the ISWAP banner, and how the Nigerian military's evolving, highly sophisticated, intelligence-driven operations in 2026 finally brought his dark reign to a permanent halt. Bako Gorgore was not just a low-level foot soldier or a random insurgent wandering the plains. He was a highly calculated, deeply entrenched military commander who previously held the terrifying title of governor over what the terror group audaciously called the Timbuktu Governorate. This specific area was a deeply forested, heavily fortified, and heavily mined stronghold that served as a major launching pad for countless devastating attacks against innocent civilian populations, humanitarian convoys, and isolated military outposts alike. His notoriety reached its absolute peak several years ago during the infamous bloody internal clashes between rival terror factions, where he played a highly instrumental frontline role in the aggressive ISWAP offensive that ultimately cornered and led to the demise of the original Boko Haram factional leader Abubakar Shekau. Following those chaotic events, there were numerous conflicting reports and widespread speculations regarding Gorgore's own survival, with some intelligence circles initially believing he might have perished in the explosive aftermath of that specific rivalry or been quietly replaced by the High Command. However, in the shadowy, highly deceptive world of asymmetric warfare, terrorist commanders frequently use such confusion to disappear off the radar, regroup in secret, and silently ascend the ranks to orchestrate even more sophisticated campaigns of violence. Over the last few years, leading up to this current period in 2026, it became terrifyingly clear to the Nigerian defense apparatus and the multinational joint task force that Gorgore was not only very much alive, but actively coordinating a deeply dangerous resurgence of ISWAP activities across the treacherous fringes of the Lake Chad region, utilizing mobile columns of heavily armed fighters mounted on gun trucks to terrorize isolated fishing communities and attempt audacious, highly coordinated ambushes on military supply routes. The precise military operation that finally neutralized this high-value target was absolutely not a sudden, random encounter in the bush, but rather the spectacular, triumphant culmination of weeks of intense, highly classified intelligence gathering, continuous aerial surveillance using advanced drone technology, and seamless interagency cooperation between the ground forces and the Air Force. According to verified defense sources and deeply sourced security analysis emerging this week, the Nigerian military intelligence units had been meticulously tracking a highly suspicious concentration of ISWAP fighters attempting to establish a brand new logistical hub and command center deep within the treacherous, unforgiving terrains of rural Borno. The operation to take him down required an extraordinary level of tactical precision, as the insurgents had deliberately embedded themselves in a highly complex camouflaged environment designed specifically to thwart conventional military assaults and avoid satellite detection. When the command was finally given by the military high command, it was a breathtaking display of overwhelming force and absolute strategic coordination, with Nigerian Air Force fighter jets initiating the assault by aggressively softening the heavily fortified enemy positions with precision airstrikes, instantly and completely obliterating the insurgents' primary defensive structures, destroying their hidden armories, and plunging their camp into absolute chaos. Almost simultaneously, highly trained, battle-hardened Nigerian Army specialized counter-insurgency units, working closely with the deeply knowledgeable local civilian joint task force, swept into the area, engaging the surviving, disoriented terrorists in a fierce, deeply intense firefight that raged relentlessly for several hours. The insurgents, heavily armed and fighting with the desperate, terrifying realization that their top command was under direct lethal threat, put up a massive, stubborn resistance, but they were ultimately completely outmaneuvered and overpowered by the sheer determination, superior firepower, and tactical brilliance of the advancing Nigerian soldiers. During this intense, high-stakes clearing operation, troops successfully breached the inner perimeter of the terror camp, and it was in this highly volatile epicenter of the battle that Bako Gorgore, surrounded by his most loyal and heavily armed bodyguards, was definitively shot and killed, finally bringing a permanent, undeniable end to his long, bloody campaign against the Nigerian state and its people. The visual confirmation of his elimination by the ground troops, alongside the immediate recovery of a massive cache of sophisticated weaponry, encrypted communication equipment, and highly vital intelligence documents detailing their future operational plans, represent an unquantifiable, massive morale booster for our troops who have spent long months living in deeply harsh conditions away from their families to protect our national sovereignty and restore peace to the Northeast. Furthermore, this immense military triumph has profound, deeply positive socio-economic implications for the resilient civilian population of Borno State, who have borne the absolute brunt of this horrific, senseless violence for well over a decade and are desperate to fully reclaim their normal lives. Under the highly active, resilient leadership of Governor Babagana Umara Zulum, the state government has been aggressively pushing forward with a highly ambitious, deeply challenging agenda to systematically close internally displaced persons camps and safely resettle hundreds of thousands of traumatized families back to their ancestral homes in local government areas that were previously deemed totally uninhabitable due to the pervasive, lingering threat of ISWAP attacks. The permanent removal of Bako Gorgore from the battlefield directly translates to a significant, highly tangible reduction in the immediate threat level across the Timbuktu axis, the Mandara Mountains, and the Lake Chad fringes, providing a vital, necessary layer of security that will allow these massive state-sponsored rebuilding and resettlement projects to proceed with a much higher degree of safety and public confidence. It means that local hard-working farmers can slowly begin to return to their fertile agricultural lands without the constant paralyzing fear of being ambushed, kidnapped for ransom, or heavily extorted by armed militants, thereby reviving the deeply damaged local economy, restoring the transborder trade routes, and slowly bringing back the vital food security that the entire northern region so desperately needs to thrive. However, while we rightfully celebrate this monumental victory today and deeply commend the absolute bravery, the immense personal sacrifices, and the unwavering patriotism of our armed forces, military experts and national security advisors in Abuja are strongly cautioning against any form of premature celebration or operational complacency. The war against asymmetric terror is incredibly fluid, highly unpredictable, and while ISWAP has undeniably suffered a highly crippling, potentially fatal blow to its operational capacity, the fundamental root causes of the insurgency, including deep-seated poverty, massive youth unemployment, climate change affecting the Lake Chad waters, and historical regional marginalization, still remain highly potent vulnerabilities that extremist, radical recruiters will continuously attempt to exploit to rebuild their depleted ranks. Therefore, this phenomenal tactical military victory must be immediately followed by a massive, highly sustained surge in socio-economic development, robust educational investment, the provision of basic healthcare amenities, and aggressive infrastructural rebuilding to ensure that the hard-won peace is permanently secured and that the dark, destructive ideologies championed by the likes of Bako Gorgore can never again find any fertile ground in our communities to take root. The Nigerian military has unequivocally proven its absolute capability to completely dismantle the highest echelons of complex terror networks through superior strategy and overwhelming force. And as the aggressive clearance operations continue to sweep through the remaining pockets of resistance in this month of March 2026, the entire nation stands in absolute, unwavering solidarity with our frontline troops, looking forward with immense hope to a bright future where Borno State is once again known entirely for its rich cultural heritage, its deeply hospitable people, and its peaceful, thriving commerce, completely and permanently free from the horrific, dark shadows of insurgency and terror.